So in last week's video, I showed you guys a whole different setup. And from that video, I actually got a couple of different questions about how I go about lighting my scenes. And what I actually did with that was I went on my Instagram and took a poll and see if you guys preferred my normal YouTube setup or that living room setup that I did for the last video. And I actually got an overwhelming number of you guys, 69% of you guys said that you preferred my normal YouTube setup. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to show you guys a behind the scenes tour of how I go about setting up my lighting setup. So what I'm actually going to do is show you guys from start to finish, step by step, what I have to do every single time I want to shoot a YouTube video. Now I think this video will be pretty helpful for those of you who are either just starting your YouTube channel or thinking about starting a YouTube channel, or those of you who would just like to see behind the scenes setups. If you're like me and you don't have a dedicated YouTube studio, this is something you're going to have to go through until you get one. But so yeah, let's get right into it. The first thing I actually have to do when making these YouTube videos is take my PC off my desk. And the reason why I want to do this is because where the PC normally sits is about 45 degrees from where my camera is positioned. And the reason why I want my light set up 45 degrees from where the camera is because it gives your face a little bit more depth and dimension with the shadows that it creates. And if you have your light positioned right behind your camera like I do in my earlier videos, it kind of creates what we call a beauty look where there's not really any shadows on your face and you have a very flat light. And the second reason why you actually want your light angled at this position is because it really helps give your eyes some catch light. And catch light is basically this reflection. I don't know if you guys can see this reflection that comes off the key light into your light. And the importance of this is it just gives your video so much life. It gives your subject so much life. It keeps your eyes from looking like just two dark black pools. After I get my PC out of the way, the next thing I do is get my C-stand in place. And I have that basically pressed right up against my desk because I want my light as close to me as possible. I recommend using a C-stand because it's just so much more sturdy. I used to use an Amazon Basics light stand and eventually over time it started bending. It's a good value at the start, but I would highly recommend investing in a C-stand. You could just do so much more stuff with it. Once I get my C-stand in place, the next thing I do is go ahead and put my key light up there, and the key light that I'm using is the Godox SL60W. And I've had this light for a little bit, and the reason why I got it in the first place is because it's just so much more affordable than, you know, going with the Aperture 300D Mark IIs or stuff like that. It's a very good starter's light, especially if you're going into YouTube or just lighting small spaces like this. In my living room video, you saw that the background was pretty dark, and that's because even at full blast, this light was not strong enough to light that entire room. On the Godox, I have a newer softbox. It's not the biggest softbox in the world, but it really helps get some diffusion through and make the light a little bit bigger. Now, if there's anything I want you guys to learn from this video, it's these two things. And number one is the closer your light is to you, the softer that light's going to be. Another thing that makes really soft light is the size of your light. The bigger your light, the softer it's going to be. So if you know those two things, you're going to have really good ideas of how to get really soft light, and that's the goal I have in making these YouTube videos and these lighting setups. So my past videos, once I get the key light all set up, that is the bulk of my lighting setup. But lately I've been going with another step, and that is setting up a second layer diffusion. And how I go about this is I actually use my old boom arm that I used to have my mic on, and I put that right in front of the key light, and then I drape my diffusion sheet over that boom arm in front of the key light to create my second layer of diffusion. And the sheet that I'm using is actually bleached muslin. You can get this from your local fabric store. I got it from Joann's. You could even get it online, but it's so much cheaper getting it at the fabric store itself. I think I got this 2.5 yard sheet for about $16. Now there's going to be some things you're going to have to consider when setting up a second layer of diffusion. And the first one is, now that you have that sheet set up, that's going to be your new source of light. That's going to be your new key light, so you want to angle that and direct that how you did your normal key light. So the second thing you're going to have to consider is how thick your diffusion layer is. If you're using something like muslin, it's pretty thick, and so you're going to have to increase the output of your light a lot. And I actually went from 10% to about 80% just by putting the muslin up. Muslin is basically just a fabric, and it's normally used, I think, in the backing of making like quilts and stuff like that. Muslin also comes in an unbleached form. I actually have both, but I ended up deciding to go with the bleached version just because I'm pretty much already tan, and I felt like the unbleached version just made me look a little bit too more orange than I'd like. So once you get your lights all set up, the next thing you want to do is get them positioned. Like I said earlier, the closer your light is to you, the softer it's going to be. So you just want to get it as close to you as possible just so it's out of frame, and that'll give you the softest light as possible. Having this big sheet of muslin, it creates an even bigger light than just the softbox, and like I said, it really helps give you some nice catch lights in your eye, and having this big sheet just gives you a whole bigger light to get that better catch light in your eye. Once you get your lights all positioned, that's pretty much it for that main lighting setup. All I have to do is turn on my practicals, and I have 3 practical lights in here, which is my lamp and these LED rods. Practicals are essentially lights that you would find in the room itself, such as, like I said, your lamps. I have one up here that I don't use, but that's just because I like a moodier setup. So this lamp is actually pretty cool. It's not actually a tungsten bulb in there. It's actually an LED light that is just set to that temperature. And the lamp is touch controlled. It has three different modes, but I like to keep it on the lowest mode so it doesn't draw too much of your eye away. The next thing I have set up are these LED rods in the back, and I wanted to mimic quasar tubes without having to spend the money on quasar tubes. These are wired, and the only problem I have with them is that they kind of flicker sometimes right up here depending on the frame rate. But so yeah, once I get that all set up, get everything framed and in the shot correctly, all I have to do is hit record on the camera, hit record on my external audio recorder, give a couple claps, and we're ready to go to start the YouTube video. But so yeah, that's my lighting setup from start to finish. Of course, I have to disassemble all of this if I don't want to be running into things walking around my room. But until I get my YouTube set up, that's what I'm gonna have to do. It's just a lot better to go the extra mile, do the extra effort to get these shots and get this lighting, because it's really the reason what creates this image. You could have the most expensive camera in the world, but if your lighting is not good, you're just not gonna have a good image. You could have the cheapest camera in the world, but have really good lighting, and your image is gonna look 100 times better every single time than the picture that you get from a high-end camera and bad lighting. So take the time, learn some lighting setups, try some stuff out in your space, and see what works for you. But so yeah, that's gonna do it for me today. If you like to support the channel, there's some buttons down there. Subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell if you want to support the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.